Welcome to the Giving Tuesday Hour on the Carolina Catholic Media Network. This is your special weekly opportunity to prayerfully and financially support our mission to educate, inform, inspire, and enrich lives with the truth of Jesus Christ. Operators are standing by now and ready to receive your tax-deductible pledge. Call 1-800-857-2909. That's 1-800-857-2909. Or visit carolinacatholicmedia.org to donate online. Once again, welcome to this special Giving Tuesday hour of programming, and thank you in advance for your generosity. Hello everybody, and welcome to this very special Giving Tuesday Pledge Hour here on the Carolina Catholic Media Network. My name is Bill Snyder. It's great to be with you. We were with you last week when we highlighted the remnant, and we're again with you here on this pledge drive. Want to remind you that you can give us a call right now to make your pledge. That phone number is 1-800-857-2909. Again, 1-800-857-2909. And you can also make those donations at carolinacatholicmedia.org. But as we always say, don't text and drive. Don't be on that mobile browser while driving. Pull over safely and make your donation. But right now, I'm excited because it's not just me talking this week, folks. I have some wonderful people with me. Jason Murphy, the host of The Obligation, and of course David Papandrea, who is the president of the Carolina Catholic Media Network. Welcome, guys, and thank you so much for joining me today as we spotlight, Jason, your show, The Obligation.
Hey, Bill, thanks for having me. David, good to see you.
See you, Jason.
Yeah, so we're excited. Jason, obviously we're spotlighting The Obligation during this hour of also raising money here for the station. So talk to us a little bit about The Obligation and just the overall flavor of the show.
Yeah, The Obligation, gosh, it's kind of like become my own personal obligation. It started a couple years ago when I received a message or a phone call from David informing me that, there was a Catholic radio station in Charlotte. And, I was fully unaware that there was at the time. I was in the midst of trying to put together the 2019 or the 2020, it must have been for the 2020 Catholic Men's Conference. And, he was, talking a little bit about the station, and I was a little hesitant. I hadn't, obviously wasn't on the loop with the new station in the Charlotte area. And so, we talked about wanting to kind of be a partner and maybe do some cross marketing, get some awareness of the station and all the benefits. And, I was kind of hesitant at first, but I thought, yeah, this could be great, and slowly after a little nudging, which David is very good for that, kind of making sure I'm not brushing him off, and I agreed to maybe do some recordings for the men's conference, and perhaps kind of eventually float into some reflections. Then I've slowly started finding myself if I'm gonna be recording things, I want to hear myself. So selfishly, I guess I was tuning in a little more because I was able to hear the little, whatever they were, 30-second spots or the 2-minute little spots we were doing. And, we picked up some momentum, and we had the conference, and it was great. They were there for a live broadcast out at St. Matthew's. And, it brought a lot of awareness to the radio station. And, through that relationship, there's a great term in our Catholic Church, being voluntold to do things. I know my pastor is good at that, but David's very good at that as well. I kind of got voluntold in a sense, without forcing, to consider doing a show. And at the time, I spoke to one of the other speakers that we had lined up for an upcoming men's conference. That was John Eads. So him and I met, and we kind of threw out a few ideas, trying to develop a men's forum, something that could kind of be a partner with the men's conference, so that it wasn't just a one a one and done kind of each year, that we would kind of have would compile them, bring them together so that we could have kind of an ongoing relationship and keep the guys engaged. If we could pitch this men's show, talk about things that guys don't talk about. Guys aren't really good about talking about their faith or talking about their struggles. We tend to try to pack them up.
No, it's amazing, Jason. The incredible work that you are doing, not only with the show, but of course with the men's conference. And so what we want to do right now is actually jump into your show, The Obligation. And we're going to be doing this throughout the hour, folks. So we're going to be jumping in with little clips of The Obligation and then coming back and talking to you about the behind the scenes a little bit, and also, of course, making sure that you have an opportunity to give to us. And the way you do that is you can very simply give us a call. That number to do so is very simple. It is 1-800-857-2909. Again, 1-800-857-2909. You can also make that donation on carolinacatholicmedia.org. But right now we're going to jump into that obligation segment, and we'll be right back to talk about it.
Let's talk about real quick the difference between between a papal bull and a motu proprio, which Pope Francis issued last year.
Traditionis custodes,
correct.
I assume you're referring to.
Right. So let's talk about a little bit of difference between the two in the rank of hierarchy of these type of documents.
Papal bull would be considered more formal.
Okay.
And it's called a bull because the bullo is the lead seal that's put on a document. So it's a matter of formality. It's issued by the Pope, so it's a declaration from the Pope, as is a motu proprio. A motu proprio is something that is issued on his own initiative or by his own hand, okay. is generally what that means. Papal bull is considered of greater formality.
Okay. So in the spirit of the National Day of Prayer, Pope Pius V, pray for us.
Pray for us.
All
Ora
right.
pro nobis.
So if you're living in this world like I am, and Jim is, and Mr. Brandt is out there, you're familiar with all of the craziness and strange things and events in the political
It
and
just doesn't stop,
religious
does it?
realm. And, going from a pandemic to civil unrest to a war in Ukraine with Russia, soaring gas prices, inflation, interest rates, just a world of confusion. And I hate to even mention, but I just have to, if anybody has watched any portion of this Johnny Depp trial, Lord, I think this is the spirit child of the world in which we live. I mean, what a mess. I got to say, it's like a train wreck. I've had to glance at it a couple times, and it's just strange. It's out there. It's weird, but isn't the world we live.
The world we live in is, it's iconic. It's
yeah. So, I mean, if it couldn't get any weirder, here comes trotting Judge Alito and the Supreme Court justices to throw out there that Roe versus Wade is going to be potentially reversed.
Yeah.
How about that?
Well, the worst of it is, why would we know that?
Exactly.
At this point,
Yeah.
It's unprecedented. It just doesn't happen that upcoming Supreme Court judgments are leaked. And just before the midterm. So, yeah, this is really, really problematic.
Yeah, so Politico published this leak that was written by, Justice Alito and marked as a first draft in the Dobbs versus Jackson women's health case, which he concluded, we hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled, saying that Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. Chief Justice Roberts confirmed Tuesday that the document was authentic, but added that it does not represent a decision by the court or the final position by any member on the issues in the case. So there is an investigation underway for the leak, which we can, we don't want to assume, but, from all intents and purposes, looking at it, probably not good intention there to put some heat.
It's nefarious without any doubt, which is really a shame. I mean, a lot of people in the various communities are all giving each other high fives, and everybody's all happy. I was like, wait, slow down.
Mhm.
This is not a verdict.
Yeah.
This is not a decision. It's,
Talk about stir the pot, right? I mean, that came out of nowhere. I mean, obviously we wouldn't have known about that without a leak, but wow. I mean, thanks be to God that is, a possibility. That the pro-life movement has been in fighting this.
Vindicated, yeah.
And such a great accomplishment if we can get that and have this respect for life from conception to natural death.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this Giving Tuesday Pledge Hour here on the Carolina Catholic Media Network. We're going to be with you for the next several Tuesdays. Today, we're talking with Jason Murphy and about the obligation. And you just heard the obligation clip. I'm also joined by David Papandrea, who's the president of the Carolina Catholic Media Network. But Jason, maybe you want to just touch on what listeners just heard and really why it's so important that Catholic radio exists to address these hard-hitting, important issues in the church.
Yeah, absolutely. With the traditional Latin Mass, I wouldn't be sitting here right now having these conversations and being, so involved in Catholic radio. It was instrumental in bringing me back to faith years ago. So it's near and dear to my heart. And, with Pope Benedict, who was instrumental in allowing and bringing things back, allowing the traditional Latin Mass to kind of continue on a regular basis. It was a great welcome to the church, and there's just a huge growing number of faithful Catholics. And, with the recent restrictions placed by Pope Francis, there's just been a lot of contention there, a lot of confusion, myself included. And I'm not a regular traditional Latin Mass attendee any longer. I prefer it, just is where I am in my state in life. But, with that, with the platform I had, I felt like there were a lot of questions, a lot of people out there, especially the traditional Latin Mass attendees, they just really felt like they wanted to, have their voice heard. And, that's the great thing about Catholic radio, that gives us a platform, gives us a voice. David probably, likes to maybe rescind that invitation to me sometimes with some of the controversies we bring on the obligation. But yeah, David, he's been instrumental in playing a part of it. And I've really learned to appreciate the radio station and all the platforms that we're hosted on. For a small period of time, we were pulled off of the AM portion. And it's funny, you really don't recognize really sometimes with radio, how many people are listening until you're not there. And I tell you, for those couple of weeks we were off, I was pulled aside several times by folks saying, hey, what's going on? Or, are y'all still there? And of course we were, and maintained to be.
Yeah, that's something, David, maybe you want to touch on a little bit and talk with us about the importance of Catholic radio, the importance of keeping great local programming on the air. And, you're not going to find the obligation on any other Catholic media network out there except for the Carolina Catholic Media. So, share with us why this is so darn important for listeners to call in right now and donate.
Well, it goes back to pretty much day one when, we were blessed when Mother Angelica, made the decision to provide 24/7 Catholic programming to entrepreneurs, to, small business owners all across the country, numbering upwards of 500 stations now. But, you quickly find as you're launching these, putting them in the marketplace, that you've got to be unique to your market. People give on a national level, a regional level, but they had to learn what we were doing in this great diocese and in this great region, where we actually have three dioceses relatively close together. There's some very special things happening here, and our commitment has been, we're going to illustrate, to highlight, to share, to bring 100 parishes across the region together in a unified fashion. One of our original board members talked about us being like 100 silos, with all the parishes. Everybody's doing their own thing, but we wanted to have one silo that everybody could look at and say, this is what's happening in our Catholic Church here in the Charlotte Diocese or in the Carolinas. And that's very special, but it's a major commitment to make that happen.
Yeah, and we can't do it without your support, folks. So right now it is time to donate, and this is this special Giving Tuesday pledge hour that we're doing here at noon. And so I encourage you to call in right now. The number 1-800-857-2909. Again, 1-800-857-2909. You give us a call. We have operators standing by right this very minute to take your phone call and your donation. You can also do it securely online at carolinacatholicmedia.org. Again, carolinacatholicmedia.org. But folks, we are going to jump back into another segment of The Obligation. That way you get a taste of what it's all about. Again, I'm joined by David Papandrea and Jason Murphy. Here is another segment of The Obligation. We'll be back to talk about it in just a few moments.
Who was watching Jimmy Swaggart? Who was watching Billy Graham? That kind of, was that kind of had that role there, that influence.
Well, you know what really started it for me was my mom, who would take us to church when I was a kid, Boulevard Baptist Church in Falls Church, Virginia. And we were not exactly every Sunday Christians, but we would go from time to time, certainly Christmas and Easter, and Mom always wanted to get us there. And well, when I was about 8, we started going regular. And then when I was 10, I accepted Jesus as my personal Lord and Savior. I was baptized, and it was Easter Sunday of 1974. I was 10 years old, where I really had an experience with the Lord. And I had already started watching Billy Graham. Billy Graham was really the spark, along with my pastor, Pastor Eugene Foreman, who was a great man, a man of God, just loved Jesus, loved us. He was just an incredible pastor. And I loved watching him preach, but we had a group from my church that went to a Billy Graham crusade. And when I saw Billy Graham, man, I was just, wow. He lit me up. And from that time on, as Mom would tell you, anytime he was preaching on TV, it was often on WTTG Channel 5 there in Washington, D.C. As I lived in Northern Virginia, I'd be right in front of that TV watching Billy Graham. And the thing about him, of course, it's that same basic message, but he presented it so well, so powerfully. He projected so well. And I was just hooked. I wanted to be a preacher like Billy Graham and Eugene Foreman. Now, unfortunately, I got away from my faith, as you know, in my teen years, but Jimmy Swaggart was the one who caught my attention in my teen years. Jim Baker also, but Jimmy Swaggart in a particular way, because he had that fiery presentation, and I was really hooked, started supporting his ministry and the PTL club, and I got my mom involved, and then my family, and we were all getting saved, and it was wonderful. It was transformative, because I had fallen way far away from God, and I'm grateful to God for Jimmy Swaggart and the televangelists, as you mentioned, because they did bring me back to faith in Jesus Christ. And I know Jesus Christ met me, and my life was transformed. And so from there, man, it was just like a rocket ship. Yeah, I joined the Marine Corps, but I always had an eye on ministry while I was in the Marines. My plan was to leave the Marine Corps and then go into full-time ministry. And it was there, as you know, that last year in the Corps, I did a 4-year tour. And that last year, I met Sergeant Matt Dula, a Catholic who knew his faith, Opus Dei, schooled he and his 7 siblings, all rock solid Catholics, man, from Chicago. And I met him. He rocked my world. He caused me to really start studying Catholicism. And I began trying to study it to disprove it. I was determined I was going to disprove it. I wanted to write the book to end all books, to just show the evils of Catholicism. And basically, that's what led me to the Catholic faith. I left the Marine Corps and I went on into ministry, but I kept studying Catholicism and again, trying to disprove it. But more and more, by the time I went to Jimmy Swaggart Bible College, I had read too much Catholic
Mm.
stuff, and I became a thorn in the side to the professors there because I found myself trying to debunk it, but at the same time, I'm learning so much. I end up
Absolutely.
arguing with professors and found myself defending the Catholic faith,
Mm.
which is not a popular thing to do at Jimmy Swaggart Bible College. But
No.
I did until finally the truth just overwhelmed me. Not that Jesus takes away our free will, of course not, but the truth just drew me. I saw it. I gave up everything and I followed Jesus. And I tell you, brother, at first I thought, what am I going to do now? My whole life is turned upside down. My family thinks I'm crazy, but you know what? Over the years, my whole family became Catholic, and
Thanks, man.
God just took me. And as you know, and as you mentioned, I ended up studying for the priesthood for 6 years, decided not to be a priest. And my 7 kids all agree I was not called to the priesthood. And my wife agrees. I was
Yeah.
not called to the priesthood. And here I am as a Catholic apologist. It truly is, as you mentioned, brother, Frank Capra had it right. It is a wonderful life.
Folks, you are listening to the Giving Tuesday Pledge Drive here on the Carolina Catholic Media Network. And you just heard another wonderful clip of The Obligation. And folks, right now, in order to keep this show and all the local programming on the air for the Carolina Catholic Media Network, we need your support. We need your prayerful and financial support. I want to stress that. And I also want to stress your best gift. It's something we talked about last week, but it is truly your best gift. What can you give to the Lord? What can you give to Carolina Catholic Media to keep this amazing programming like The Obligation on the air? Right now, we're asking you to make that prayer inside of your heart and that gift if you can do it. You can simply give us a call right now, 1-800-857-2909. Again, 1-800-857-2909. Or you can make that donation online. There's a big donate page on the Carolina Catholic Media .org website. You just go over to carolinacatholicmedia.org, you click donate, and you are able to give to us and give your pledge. So I want to jump into a little bit of a conversation here, gentlemen, about what we just saw with the wonderful Tim Staples interview, Jason, and you kind of bring everything together with the men's conference and also some wonderful interviews from some wonderful Catholic speakers. So maybe just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it was great having, we had Tim Staples come on to The Obligation a few months back before the men's conference, and that was greatly received. I mean, Tim is such a well-known and great apologist for the Catholic Church, featured on Catholic Answers. And on top of his story too, just, he was a convert, and then most recently, suffering catastrophic stroke, recovering through that and back on the speaking circuit. So it was great having him on. We've had Father Colin Blatchford from Courage International. He's an amazing priest, great mission there. And, we had Dr. Ray Garundi, and I know I've confessed this one a couple times where I was kind of foolish and I missed the recording button on that one. But I assure you it was a great episode, even though I was the only one that got to enjoy it. But yeah, we've had several priests from the area. Some of the speakers, Keith Nestor was on. I mean, just powerful, great. Another convert who was at the previous men's conference. And it's just, we have this, this thing in the afternoons on Saturday, this men's den power hour, we kind of lovingly call it, kind of like a week refresher, to kind of keep the spirit of the men's conference going. Like I said before, we don't want it to be a one and done, show up, and because then it turns into, maybe some sort of, I hate to use the word, but, an obligation each year, and like, oh, I got to get that off my list. But we don't want it to be something that you get off your list. We want it to be something that you're, excited about, and that you're staying excited about, and you're living your faith. And that's part of, what the show is all about, being the men, the fathers, the husbands that God is calling us to be. So on this Men's Den Power Hour, we replay, the men's conferences from the previous years. So if you're, wanted to hear, a refresher, or there was one of the years in particular, they kind of recirculate, and we'll have those replays. So it's a great time, and it's a great relationship between the men's conference and Carolina Catholic.
Yeah, that's amazing. And David, I know you've made such a wonderful commitment to this to keep it going. And we featured the remnant last week during the Share-a-thon, or during this pledge drive hour. We'll talk about the Share-a-thon upcoming here in another segment. But we have that. In addition to that, we also have the men's the Catholic Man Show. Right, we just added that 2:00 on Saturdays as well. So David, you've made a great commitment to this. Maybe just touch on that as we wind up this little segment here and jump back into the obligation.
Well, we just right now with the addition of the Catholic Man Show, we're on from 2 until 7 o'clock. We've got Bear Wozniak on at 6, and then all of our local programs filter in between Faith and Sport and the Obligation, the Remnant, the replay of the men's conference. So we want to be there every week. We want to have good habits formed that the men know it's there. They can go to it at any time. Our ultimate goal is that we want all the councils, from the Knights of Columbus, all the parishes, to be represented, to physically be at the next men's conference. And, that's going to be a very special day and time when we have 100% participation. But that's our goal, and we're not going to stop till we get there. Right, Jason?
That's right. Onward we go.
And that's awesome. Let me tell you, there are not many Catholic radio stations out there committed to really driving home men that have 5 hours of men's programming on a Saturday, folks. So we really need you to help us be that light in the darkness, and we could use your support right now. Again, this is the Giving Tuesday Pledge Drive. You can help support us by calling 1-800-857-2909. Again, 1-800-857-2909. Right now we have operators standing by to take your call, or you can do so online at the carolinacatholicmedia.org website. We're going to jump back into another clip of the obligation, but Noah will be with you for the remainder of this hour. So stay tuned right here to the Carolina Catholic Media Network.
That's beautiful. It's great. My wife actually converted prior to us getting married. She was like, oh, I'll never be Catholic. That'll never happen. And, God obviously puts his target, where he'd like, and he goes after. And certainly she not only became Catholic, she began teaching in a Catholic school, and we now have 6 kids, and we worked in RCIA together. So God definitely hears what we say, and man proposes and God disposes, right? So certainly interesting way that things work out. Now at the men's conference coming up, we have Tim Staples from Catholic Answers, and I think he's another convert, right?
Yeah. It's funny because Tim was a youth pastor in Assemblies of God Church. I worked for an amount of time as an associate pastor in the Assemblies of God Church. So while I was doing other I'm kind of a mutt of Protestantism when it comes to what I've done. I spent most of my time in the Methodist Church, but I've also been in evangelical free churches and Assemblies of God. So I've kind of been around. But yeah, Tim, it's funny because I went to hear Tim speak very early on in my exploration of Catholicism, because my friend that I was telling you about invited me to come to a parish mission where Tim was going to be the speaker. I remember he showed up and he had this black shirt on with these big white letters that said "Proud to be Catholic." And I remember I'm thinking, I got to listen to this guy, because I knew he had been an Assemblies of God youth pastor, and I was a youth pastor at the time. And I was like, all right, let's hear what he has to say. And we all know Tim is an amazing guy when it comes to his conversion and talking about the faith. So yeah, I remember that from back in the early days of listening to Tim.
Then shortly after your conversion, I guess you got into, you wrote a book, right?
It's called The Convert's Guide to Roman Catholicism, Your First Year in the Church. And I thought to myself, and it was literally a week after my first year had been completed. And I thought, I've read a lot of books about why you should become Catholic. I've read a lot of books about Catholicism. I've read a lot of books about, the things you need to know to be Catholic, but I hadn't ever seen or read any books about what it's like to be Catholic. Now that might seem like a weird distinction, Jason, but it's a real distinction, because you can learn all this stuff in your head and you can be convinced of it, but that's a different thing from the experience of making the conversion from being Protestant to being Catholic. And so I wrote this book that's like a real down to earth walk through as a new convert. What should you be doing in your first year? What should that first year look like? So everything from how do you tell your friends that and your family that you're becoming Catholic? What should you do? What should you not do? Yeah. How do you find a local church to attend? Which devotions should you pray or participate in your first year? Because here's the thing, when you become Catholic, everyone is coming up to you, throwing this devotion at you, that devotion at you. You need to do this, you need to do that. And you want to do all the things, but it's so overwhelming. Absolutely. It can be tough to know what to do. And you can easily get buried in all of the books, all of the prayers, all of the devotions. And so what I wanted to do is just sort of say to people, hey, year one, here are the things you should be looking at and working through. And so I wrote this book. I completely self-published it. I didn't send it to any publishers or anything like that. I just made it myself through Amazon and through that. And then I gave a talk at my church after my first year. My priest was like, all right, I think we're ready to hear your story, you know? So I gave my talk at the church and it got put on YouTube, and then it kind of just ballooned from there to people heard this. And then next thing I know, I was going on the journey home with Marcus Grodi, and then getting all these invitations to come and speak and to write. And the book started doing pretty well. And that just opened up a lot of doors. And then I started making more videos on YouTube. And that is ultimately what led me to this place of starting this ministry Down to Earth, where I thought, okay, I need to take this more seriously now. This is like a thing. And I really felt like the Lord was saying to me, now is the time, you know, I'm not done with you yet. You gave up that ministry to come into my church, and now I'm going to use you in a different way. That's where I had to be. And I tell people all the time, like, look, when you're ready to make the conversion to Catholicism, you have to do it without any strings attached. You can't say, well, I'll be Catholic, but I have to have A, B, Z, and whatever already lined up. And I have to, like, here's my plan for how I'm going to turn this into a ministry or a job, or like forget all that. Forget all that. Just focus on Jesus. Focused on what it means for you to come into the church and experience it for that in and of itself. You know, I had this very real moment. I'll talk about this at the conference, where I was face to face with the Lord, and I said, God, I'll become Catholic, but you've got to make a way.
Hey everybody, welcome back to this Giving Tuesday Pledge Hour here on the Carolina Catholic Media Network. I'm Bill Snyder. I'm joined by Jason Murphy and David Papandrea. And today we are spotlighting what you just heard was a clip of the obligation on the Carolina Catholic Media Network, and it's a hard-hitting men's show, as we've been talking about, and it's local, which means that you only can get it on the Carolina Catholic Media Network, which includes the app, Carolina Catholic Media Network app, our 1270 AM, and of course on all the different streaming platforms, right? Podcasts and all of that stuff. You can find out all the information about that and make your donation to help keep us on the air at the carolinacatholicmedia.org website. So head over to carolinacatholicmedia.org. You can learn about where you can find the Carolina Catholic Media Network, download the app, and of course make your donation to help keep us on the air today. One thing I'd like to do, though, gentlemen, is talk a little bit about the importance of men kind of manning up. You know, Catholic radio, if you're listening on AM 1270, you might be searching the dial and looking for a rock station or something like that, and you're like, oh, wow, okay, these guys are talking about men in the Catholic Church and, you know, what it means to man up and live your faith. Jason, maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, since, you know, it's kind of in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I was just thinking of a line from a sermon that I heard a few years ago, and the priest said that a dead fish goes with the flow. And unfortunately, guys these days are going with the flow. And that's not where we need to be. We need to be fighting the current of our times. We need to be fighting the current of all the things affecting society and our church that are pulling it away and pulling us away. We're called to more. We're called to greatness, and like our good Father Rue here at the cathedral loves to preach. We're called to saints. And I think we don't think of that often. We think saints are reserved for the people up in the windows and on the statues and in the missal. But anyone in heaven is a saint, whether canonized or not. And so we are all, if we are called to heaven, we are all called to sainthood. And it's going to take heroic effort. And these days, I think there are a number of opportunities, every waking hour to be heroic in this world. And so we call men to that, and in the partnership with the men's conference, our slogan is iron sharpens iron. We have to have each other. If a knife is hanging around a bunch of butter knives, well, it's going to get dull and it's going to be a butter knife. But, we're called to be sharp and ready. And the only way to do that is to challenge each other and to be there for each other, because we don't do that. Men separate. We tend to, when things get tough, we run off to our dens. And that reminds me of a story from Bear Wozniak, talking about a lone wolf is a has-been. It's someone who's kind of packed up and given up. We think that I'm a man, I'm going to go off and do my own thing. Well, you're going to go off and be a has-been, because we're called to right where we are in our daily lives, in our families, in our churches. And, the radio station here, it's such a great platform. It keeps me engaged, even if I'm just listening to myself. It's something challenging to me, but I know we're reaching guys. We're reaching a lot of guys, and we're reaching the ladies in those guys' lives. And they're being inspired, and they're telling their guy, hey, come listen to this, check this out. So I'm grateful to David and all his efforts to keep this thing running and pushing in the future. And we appreciate everyone out there listening and supporting. And please get on those calls and make those donations. You'll be repaid in heaven.
Yeah. David, anything to add a little bit about just challenging men? And I mean, your commitment is so wonderful. We talked about that in the last segment, 2 to 7 every single Saturday, men can hear this stuff. And so men, if you're searching the dial for a rock station, hit the favorite on your car right now.
This is the rock station.
Yeah, that's it. That's true. Right.
The rock.
Yeah.
Built on the rock.
That's right. So click the favorite, like the preset right now, and every single Saturday from 2 until 7, just know that if you're driving around in the car, you're going to get it. So David, maybe just a little bit on that.
I think that's a great point to make in terms of how is your media consumption, just discern how you're absorbing media. And there is a place for Catholic radio, for Catholic media, for Carolina Catholic media in your daily media life. You're absorbing a lot. You gotta detox. There's no better way to detox than with Carolina Catholic media.
That's right. Beautiful stuff. Folks, we need your support. Can't do this without you. Carolina Catholic Media Network is a 100% listener-funded station. That means that without you, we don't exist. Right now, we need you to give us a call and support us. Very simply, 1-800-857-2909. Again, 1-800-857-2909. And you can also make your donation online at the carolinacatholicmedia.org website. So head over there, carolinacatholicmedia.org. Remember, don't text and drive. We all know that, but try to make your donation if you can today. 1-800-857-2909 or at the carolinacatholicmedia.org website. We'll be right back after another segment of The Obligation. Thanks so much, and stay tuned.
I imagine it probably was looked at the way I looked at communion, before I really, began practicing my faith. It was just kind of a symbolic, nice thing you did to, remember, the Last Supper perhaps, or how was that viewed? And then how did your eyes get open to really understanding, like, this is truly the body, blood, soul, and divinity of our Lord Jesus Christ?
Well, in the United Methodist Church, communion is called a sacrament, okay? But it's not viewed as a sacrifice. It's not viewed as the literal body and blood of Christ. We kind of go down the road of saying, well, Christ is present in some kind of mystical way, but it's a memorial. But it was never, practically speaking, it was never looked at like that, because, you know, if that is truly the body and blood of Christ, then what do you do with it once the service is over? And the answer was, you throw it away, which you don't do that if you really believe that's Jesus. Okay. Sure. There was absolutely no type of fence around the service of communion in terms of who can receive communion. We practiced open communion, and we were very proud of that. It was like, hey, well, the Catholics are so closed off, but we here, we're open. We don't care whether you belong to this church or any church, or whether you even really believe in Jesus. If you just want to come and experience this, you're welcome. So we had no concept of, you know, what St. Paul talks about, of examining yourself and receiving unworthily. That just wasn't on the map. Okay. So that's some practical things, because it was viewed really as just sort of a memorial meal, a remembrance, not a participation in something, you know, divine or real from the standpoint of the presence of Christ.
Right.
So that's kind of the Protestant way of looking at it for the most. Now, whenever you say that, you have to remember there's no one Protestant way. There's as much variety in Protestantism as you could find. You'll find Protestants that do believe it's the real body and blood of Christ, but they don't believe what the Catholics believe about it. So you know, it's very open.
Yeah.
So for me to come to the place where I believed in the real presence of Christ, that was actually one of the first things that I encountered, where I was like, okay, wow. And of course, it's looking at John chapter 6 and recognizing what Jesus said in light of how that has been interpreted by the church fathers, and how that had been the universal teaching of the church for all of these years, until it was, you know, not really formally challenged, you know, on a large scale until the Reformation. So what's the deal with that? Why did that change? But the problem that a lot of us Protestants had, and I know I certainly had, was we don't view it that way. We thought the default position of Christianity was our Protestant position. Mm-hmm. And that the Catholics somehow innovated and changed everything, whether it was at the Council of Trent or some other time in the Middle Ages, or even, you know, later on in history. We looked at that and said, well, we have the true faith of the apostles in the Bible, but the Catholics changed it somewhere along the way. And when you realize that that's completely false, and that the opposite is true, that the Catholic position is the default Christian position, and the Protestants were the ones that innovated, that's when you have to start coming to grips with that in a new way. And once that happens, it's sort of just like one by one, you go through this list of objections and issues, and you go, yeah, okay, if I want to, you know, follow the faith that was passed down from Jesus to the apostles, then I need to rethink some of these things.
Hey everybody, welcome back to this very special Giving Tuesday Pledge Hour here on the Carolina Catholic Media Network. Today we are spotlighting the obligation, and of course have the host of the obligation, Jason Murphy, with us, along with David Papandrea, and we're talking about just the importance of a Catholic radio in a man's life, right? You know, as we are asking you for your donations, as we're asking you to support the Carolina Catholic Media Network, we know that this is important for men to be tuned into, and important for a platform to exist. So I want you to give us a call right now to make that pledge to keep us on the air. 1-800-857-2909. Again, 1-800-857-2909. Operators are standing by right now to take your call, and you can also make your donation online if that's more comfortable for you. CarolinaCatholicMedia.org to securely donate online. But as we kind of wind up this episode on the obligation here and on this pledge drive, Jason, I'm wondering if you can just give listeners maybe some future focus about what they can hear each week going on, you know, some of the upcoming topics or upcoming things for people.
Yeah, so that's the great thing. You know, we've really been developing a listenership, and with all the great men's organizations in the Diocese of Charlotte, whether it's the Knights of Columbus or certain men's groups, or what have you, we're getting contacted by different men saying, hey, what do you think about bringing my buddy on who wrote this book, or this priest who specializes in this particular ministry. And so it's really really becoming an integral part, kind of a hub, so that we can keep men engaged, and we're kind of your go-to spot. On the obligation, sometimes we'll talk about one particular topic or expound on scripture. And more times than not recently, there's so much going on with the church and the world that it's a great place to go for Catholic perspective on some of the secular news, or even things in the news that maybe we miss or we don't really understand what's going on. We'll kind of dig in there. Whether it's a Catholic perspective and why on right to life, or what's going on with the traditional Latin Mass and some of the historical understandings and writings, on those things. So it's a great, venue for such a multitude of topics. And we always invite guys, if they're out there, if anybody's ever struggling with something, we want to be that place where guys can come, so that maybe, even if, it could be done anonymously. It could be done over the radio. Maybe at some point in the future, we have that ability to take calls and things. But we want to be that resource for guys, and know that if they're struggling and they need support, they can reach out and whether it's our show or the other shows. There's the Remnant, which Bill, you and Bill, Ray Haywood, have done a great job with, and Faith and Sport with Dr. John Aquaviva, Catholic perspective on sport and life, a great show there, and so many others that we want to be able to be engaging and be relevant and stay up, with the times, and going forward, just being that resource for everyone. And the website, the website and the app, the Carolina Catholic Media app is it's filled with so many great resources, scripture and reflections, and it's just a ton of information. You can download all of the podcast, previous ones. So yeah, we enjoy it, and we're there. We're always open for new ideas.
Awesome stuff. David, this has really been wonderful to get a little window into all the stuff that Carolina Catholic Media does for men. And so, yeah, just any thoughts as we kind of wind up this episode?
Well, with the ministry, the apostolate was really founded on the premise of the kids getting their confirmation, and it's like, okay, what's next? Or check the box, you're on your own. And it's like, I've gone through it as a father of three, and watching the kids, how they'll drift, and then they come back. If they come back, that whole thing. And we've made a commitment that we want to engage the kids right out of the box. We're delving into the school system very heavily. We're going to be doing a 5-part series on homeschools. We're very close with Dr. Monroe and what's happening, with our schools. Jason is on the board. There's so many things that are happening. We care about the youth, and we want to be a part of what they're interested in and give them a voice on this. And as somebody said to me recently, David, the fruits of this will be felt long after you're gone. I said, that put a big smile on my face, because I'd love nothing more than to know that this has impacted generations of Catholic youth in the beauty of what's happening here in the greater Charlotte diocese.
Yeah, just amazing stuff, folks. And there's only one way that it can continue, and that's with your prayerful and financial support of Carolina Catholic Media Network. We can't do it without you. So right now, operators are standing by to take your call, and that call, you can make it to 1-800-857-2909. Again, 1-800-857-2909. Make that phone call and give us your best gift, right? That's one of the things we talked about, was that best gift. And whatever it is, pray about it, make that phone call, and help keep us on the air. You can also do it online, carolinacatholicmedia.org. Folks, we're going to take you to one last segment of The Obligation and be back for a very quick wrap-up, but we thank you so very much. Thank you, David. Thank you, Jason, for being with me today here on this Carolina Catholic Pledge Drive Giving Tuesday hour.
Viva Cristo Rey!
Viva!
Awesome. Well, folks, here's that last little clip of the obligation now.
So it's important for us to continually be moving in the direction of heaven, which is obviously our ultimate goal at the end of this journey. And each step, one after the other, taking those steps towards heaven, towards sanctity, and towards strengthening the body of Christ, which begins, as we know, at home. We know this year's men's conference slogan or motto is Quo Vadis? Where are you going? Where is your journey leading you? What path are you on? Are you on the path of self-indulgence and selfishness, looking out for yourself? What's best for you? What do you want to do? Or are you looking as a whole, as the body of your family? Obviously, we're all connected to the body of Christ, the church. But in a sense, even in a more microcosmic way, the body of our family. Where are we directing our family? Are we too engaged in sports and activities, television, the latest series on Netflix or Amazon, video games? These take a lot of time. Time goes by extremely fast. We know that. We can look at our kids and how quickly they grow. I don't think any of us would look at what we're doing and think we are doing this to harm our family or our kids. I think it's just a busy, distracting world, and a lot of times we just want to escape it. So TV or video games or social media, it's an easy escape. Is it the right escape? Probably not. Is it an easy one? Yes. It's quite easy just to flip the screen on, sit out and sit there and just veg and let it numb your mind. But it's not just numbing your mind, it's also pulling you away from higher things. The TV shows are there for your attention to sell advertising and to sell subscriptions. They are definitely there designed to attract your attention. And not all of them are intrinsically evil. However, they are definitely keeping us sometimes from what we should be doing. Are we taking the time to pray with our family? Are we taking the time to make sure we are on time for Mass? Are we talking with our spouse, talking with our kids? It's very easy to slide into that. Yes, there's a time for recreation. There is a time to relax and not have to think all the time. Yes, certainly. But we just need to monitor that and make sure it's not consuming too much of our time. So we talk a lot on this show about what we should be doing, what we need to be doing. And I want to go back for a moment and define the name of our show, The Obligation. The obligation was chosen because it refers to the obligation that us as men have, our duties to ourselves, to our wives, to our families, to our church, and primarily to our God. We have many different obligations. There are material obligations, there are spiritual obligations, and I think we need to look closely at those and see how we're doing. Because we've been talking about, the last few weeks and many times on this show, we talk about taking that first step. Well, if you don't really know the parameters of this journey, we've talked about planning out and mapping out our journeys, then you really can't really pinpoint, what the next step is because we don't have a direction and we don't know what our guidelines are. So if we bring it all the way back and we look primarily from where it all begins in our obligation. Obligation obviously begins and ends with our obligation to God. Let's look real quick at the word obligation. Obligation is a binding pledge, a commitment to fulfill a promise or meet conditions of a bargain. It comes from the old French word obligation, which is an obligation, a duty, a responsibility, and directly from the Latin obligationem, an engaging or pledging, literally a binding. So if we look at this word, obligation, we are put under an obligation. We're held to an obligation. And this obligation begins with birth. When we are born and we come into life, and eventually we begin to learn yes and no and right and wrong as a small child, this eventually, through our Christian faith, is directed and led by our obligations to God.
Hey everybody, welcome back here to the Carolina Catholic Giving Tuesday Pledge Hour. We thank you so much for tuning in and supporting our station and our media network. We can't do this without you. The Carolina Catholic Media Network is a 100% listener-supported station. That means without you, we don't exist. Without your generous financial and prayerful support, we cannot exist. And if you haven't already given to us this hour, we really do encourage you to call in and make your pledge. Again, the number is 1-800-857-2909. 1-800-857-2909. Give that a call right now or visit our website, carolinacatholicmedia.org, to make your tax-deductible donation today. As we wrap up, I want to once again thank Jason Murphy and David Papandrea for joining me for a large portion of this episode, but I also want to give you a little bit of a future focus, because the Carolina Catholic Media Network is going to be hosting a Sacred Heart Share-a-thon from June 22nd until the 24th from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily. And this is something that is really a community event. It's about gathering all of you, listeners, business owners, supporters of the station, together to share what is going on in your life and in your ministries with the wider Carolina Catholic area, right? Because we have these platforms, we're able to do this. We're able to give you a platform. And so to share about your ministry, to share about your projects. And maybe your business wants to sponsor this hour, an hour during this Carolina Catholic Sacred Heart Share-a-thon. It is only $150, folks, to sponsor an hour. It doesn't mean you have to go on the air. You're certainly more than welcome to come on the air. But the way this is laid out is you sponsor or you host an hour. It's $150, and you get a portion of the hour to talk about your ministry, to talk about your parish, to talk about your business, and live on the air. We're going to be live on the air. I really do encourage you to learn more about this. You can simply call in to the station, 1-800-857-2909, or you can reach out to us online at carolinacatholicmedia.org, and you can certainly learn more about the Share-a-thon there. So thank you. We really do appreciate you tuning in today. We hope that you will sponsor an hour or be a part of the Carolina Catholic Media Sacred Heart Share-a-thon, June 22nd to the 24th. Again, if you haven't yet donated to us or made your pledge, do it now. One more time, here's the phone number, 1-800-857-2909. 1-800-857-2909. Or online at carolinacatholicmedia.org. Well, folks, that's all the time we have for you today. We appreciate you tuning in. And until next time, may God bless you and your families. Thank you again for your generosity during this Giving Tuesday Pledge Drive Hour on the Carolina Catholic Media Network. Once again, you can donate by calling 1-800-857-2909. That's 1-800-857-2909. Or online at carolinacatholicmedia.org. Don't forget to follow, friend, and like us on social media. Just search for Carolina Catholic Media Network. and personally invite at least one person to check out our program.